mess up.
Yes,
And guess what,
it's
Dr. Evans?
7.
I have a brand new computer. I have not even had time to even, it's format, everything's there. I haven't even had time to even, I picked it up one time at the office and I have not done anything else with it. So, but anyway, and it's a state of the art once I ever get it done. So
Oh,
you
will enjoy that.
I got me a good one, a really good one this time. But anyway,
Good.
Travis, let me pull this up before we get started, and let me share the screen, and then we can begin our. Okay, here it is. That's what I want. Okay, and I'm shaking again already, so I need to stop the video. But Dr. Davis, would you like to begin?
I would. Good evening and welcome to week 11 of your MSA class, guys. We only have 4 class meetings left, and you will have finished your first semester.
And guess what, Dr.
So-
Davis? One of those nights is a catch-up night. We don't even meet that night. You and I will come online for those that need to meet with us, but if they don't have any questions or whatever, they don't have to meet with us that night. It's we give them a night to work on things.
So 4 class meetings, maybe, if you are on track with all of your work. And we've got a lot of work to do in these last 3 to 4 weeks, but I was very pleased with the AAPTEL that came in. Dr. Stedman, I had 5 that didn't get it in on time. And guys, you know, you got an absence for that. So you're going to need to make sure that you get your work in on time and that it is your best work, not just throw something together just to say you've got something in. But we are going to finish up with a bang here in a few weeks with this AAPTEL. And I'm just really pleased with the work that did come in, the quality of work.
And I will the same thing. I've gotten all of mine are cleared. I had all of them but one that came in that night, and I knew that it was not going to come in, but they knew the consequences of it and they took it. But the next morning by a certain time, I had the work, and it was quality work that came in as well. So I've most of them, in fact, Dr. Revis, I think there's several that have completed the peer review process, and I think I've got 4 that have cleared the AAPTEL task 1 and moving on to task 2. I've cleared several others to move on as soon as they got the peer review process done. I've got I only had 1 that's got a lot of work to do on the AAPTEL task 1, and I need to see that work ASAP because you can't go into task 2 without task 1 being cleared. But other than that, I think I've got a couple with some minor things that's got to be done once the peer review. But for the most part, they're ready for task 2 for the most of them.
Well, and a good point you've made. You can't go on to task 2 without doing task 1 because you're going to pull from task 1 to complete task 2. So you've got to have that done. Oh, I'm so sorry. The other thing that I will
go ahead.
Go ahead.
You can't, you can't determine a gap analysis until, I mean, the gap analysis is based on what you've done, what you do, the research you do in task 1 and the work you do in task 2. So if you haven't done the research, you can't compare it to anything. So.
Right. So let's talk just a minute about the competency folio, internship, and school of ed dispositions.
Right.
Are we among?
I don't have all the students from your class have not submitted their competency folios for me, for me to review, those 12, and it's 4 weeks past due now.
All right, guys, you heard him. Get that in. And I know that you're starting to work on your AAPTEL, but that should have been done, as he said, 4 weeks ago. And I just want to make one quick, I think we're among friends at this point in the course. So Shannon Hensley, if you're on tonight, I think you need to request comments. I know you had like 3 that you had to revise in your competency folio, but when I went in, I did it before class this evening. I couldn't see anything different, which makes me believe you haven't requested comments
Right.
on those 3. Now, if you have to do, let's say 3, uh, please, please, please don't go back and click request comments on all of those. Just request comments on the ones you had to revise. So, and then Daniel, I have not gotten with you yet. I've not gotten yours looked at yet. I know I saw it's in there ready for me to look at, but I haven't done that yet. And I
Okay.
still have a couple that haven't addressed the competency folio
And,
finished
and,
yet.
and please go back and look and just check, do a self-check, even, if you've submitted it to see our comments, because if there was anything on just one of them, we would have told you, that you've cleared 11 out of 12, but you need to go back and fix, something. So go back and make sure that we have cleared you. And anyway, just take care of that. And the other thing is, make sure that on the internship that you're where you need to be, because you must have a minimum of 80 diversified hours, not just 80 hours, a diversity of hours. And there, you need to show leadership as much as possible. It can't be, just 20 hours of bus duty and, just supervision type things. You've got to show leadership opportunities. So make sure that, and it's a minimum. Some of you will go over that, based on what you do, but just don't let that catch up with you at the end and you get in trouble with it. And Dr. Revis, you want to tell them about the School of Ed disposition?
Right. If you've not already completed your School of Ed dispositions, and those are found in your folio where you submitted your APSEL, your DRF folio, you've got 2 portfolios in there. You got your folio where you submit your evidence work, and then you got your competency folio. So when we say DRF, that's where you submit all of your evidence work. And what you will see down there is School of Ed dispositions, and you also have to do a competency analysis. You don't do your competency analysis yet, but you can go in and do your School of Ed dispositions anytime that you've got a free moment. And that is just it's a self-assessment where you're scoring yourself as I don't remember the scale. Dr. Stanman, can you tell me the scale?
Well, if you rate yourself that you're not at standard, or you're not,
Okay.
or but if you rate yourself at standard, and I can't remember the word, Dr. Revis, you've caught me off guard.
Oh, Zach's put them in here for us.
Okay, got
Uh,
you. Okay, what
all
are they?
right. Okay,
Yeah,
unsatisfactory,
unsatisfactory.
needs improvement, meets expectations, and exceeds expectations.
Right. Now, if it's unsatisfactory, we need to know why you think you're unsatisfactory. It's okay to not be right where you think you're going to be, because you're just beginning this program. And if you're not right where you need to be, it's okay to say in an area. Now, if you rate every one of them below, then I'm going to say, what's wrong with you? But if in an area, you may say, 1 out of 5 areas, I just don't feel comfortable. But by the end of the program, you should be at least at, what's that word, Dr. Revis?
Meets expectations.
Meets expectations. Now, tell them what, if they say they exceed expectations, tell them what they got to do differently, Dr. Revis.
Okay, in your first semester, if you exceed expectations, again, you have to write a justification as to why you believe, just beginning the program, that you are exceeding expectations in a particular area. Now, think of this as a growth model. You're going to do this each and every semester. So you want to start out, some of them maybe needs improvement. Maybe you feel like in some of the dispositions that I really don't feel like I'm where I need to be here. It's okay to say needs improvement. Don't put, really, I would not want any one of you to put unsatisfactory because I really haven't seen that in any one of you. But it's okay to put needs improvement and meets expectations. It's okay if you just mark yourself straight, meets expectations. But the only time you have to do explanations is when you're in the highest column of exceeds or when you're in the lowest column of unsatisfactory. Okay, self-assessment. It's very quick, easy, but you do get to see those dispositional behaviors of school leaders. And I think those are important things for you to read through and at least ponder and reflect upon. But it's nothing that you have to spend a lot of time on.
And
Zach, thank you.
remember, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was just going to thank Zach for putting that scale up there. I appreciate
Thank you,
that, Zach.
Zach. And do not make sure that when you're looking at these, you're thinking of yourself as an administrator, not as a teacher. So, don't get confused and say, this is my role as a teacher, because if it's your role as a teacher, you should be, there should be many of those areas that you would excel in, if not all of them. But, like Dr. Reva said, as an aspiring administrator, or even as a beginning administrator that you are, you're going to be at different levels of, and the fact that you're in the program, speaks, that you're at a certain place anyway. So, but go ahead and take care of that. It takes about 10 minutes at the most to hit those bullets and to submit it for evaluation.
May I
Yeah.
say one more thing about your
Sure.
internship log? Don't try to upload anything right now about your internship log, okay? Just make sure it's in good order. We both require your logs to be typed, not handwritten, and that's just because that's professional, and we want you to be professional. So if you have handwritten it, when you've got some spare minutes, start typing it and make it professional looking. You always have to get a signature of your site supervisor. We'll talk more about that, but don't try to upload it anywhere. Just hold on to it, and we'll go over that toward the end of the semester, okay?
And we're telling y'all all this now, but these are things that you can go ahead and take care of and not have to rush at the last minute doing things. So go ahead and take care of what you can take care of when you can. We've talked about comments about task 1 of the AAPTEL, Dr. Revis. I don't think we need to go on there. I think we're okay with that, don't you? You there? Can you hear me, Dr. Revis?
I can now, yes.
Okay. It says my internet is unstable again, so
You might want to turn your picture video off. Maybe that will help
let
you.
me do that. Let me stop the video. But I think we've cleared everything. If you have any questions about task 1, then you need to see Dr. Revis and me privately about that. But for the rest of the evening, we're going to go back over, the requirements for task 2. We're going to a reminder of the Zoom team activity for the AAPTEL, and then we're going to introduce you to task 3. We're not going to spend a lot of time there, but we're going to introduce you to task 3 because some of you will soon be ready to start there, and so we want to make sure that that you understand and that you're ready for it. And then just please look at the bottom. As always, we've listed. We should have gotten by today at 6 o'clock. We should have gotten the 2 peer reviews in Blackboard for the work for task 1. So if you haven't done that, I graded all the work up until 6:30. I had 2 students that had not submitted. So if it's you, please take care of that. This is the week 11 responsibilities. And we're going to talk about the Zoom conference link in just a moment. And then I'll look at next week as well. So just go ahead and get an idea of what the next 2 weeks look like. And then after that, week 13, we're going to give you another break to catch up with anything that you need to catch up on where you are. And then by week 14, we'll be able to start bringing closure to the work that you're doing. So I'm going to minimize that, Dr. Revis, and I'm going to bring up, Revis, you want me to bring up the template or the helpful hints?
You know, do you mind if I use Dr. Hamilton's PowerPoint?
Absolutely. Now, let me stop sharing. Let me stop sharing then,
Okay.
and then you take care of that. Okay, go ahead.
Can you see my screen?
No, ma'am.
Okay, let me try it one more time.
Yes,
Can you see the PowerPoint, guys?
we can now. Yes.
All right. So this is actually the PowerPoint that Dr. Hamilton did for you when you had the meeting about the AAPTEL. And it's a very good PowerPoint. So I see no reason to recreate something that's really strong and effective, and kudos to her. So let's talk about what you did in task 1. You did a lot of research on those 5 areas, right? And you identified your walkthrough instrument, and you have identified your survey. You have put it into Qualtrics. You have gotten it approved by Dr. Lamb, and he has sent you back a link. Now, Dr. Stedman, I don't know what you did, but as soon as I saw that, and I saw that they had they had sent it to Dr. Lamb and it had been approved, I told them they were free to go ahead, excuse me, and send that survey out with their principal's permission. Is that what you did as
Yeah, no,
well?
I'm okay. Yeah, I cleared mine to move on to, yeah. If they,
So as soon as you get cleared from us on AAPTEL Task 1 with those 2 instruments, go ahead, do your walkthroughs, administer your survey.
and
All right.
if you've got 100 on task 1 for me, that means that you finished the peer review process, but you can move on.
Okay. And I think a couple of you I told to go ahead, even though there was a little something maybe in prompt 1, if you had your survey or your checklist and everything was done, it was in Qualtrics and you had a link, I told you to move on. Okay, so that's the first thing you got to do. You've got to get that survey and checklist approved and through us before you can do the walkthroughs and administer your survey. So the first thing you want to do in prompt 1 is you want to talk about your data collection. Describe what data collection strategies you used, the criteria in the process as, for example, in teacher leadership and empowerment. This is what the research said, and this is what my school reported. So that's why you've got to get those instruments done very quickly. So here's the first thing you do. Take those same 5 areas. Those are all going to be headings, just like you had in task 1. And remember, the data are collected and analyzed with your PLC. So you've got to administer the survey, get the results. You've got to do your walkthroughs, get some summative results, and then you need to meet with your PLC to go over the results. And prompt 1 is narrative work only. No, in many of our tasks, prompt 1 is a lot of narrative, and prompt 2 is a lot of graphics and visuals and figures. Same kind of format here. Prompt 1 is all narrative. Okay.
Dr. Revis, just remember with the narrative work for prompt 1, remember those 5 areas. We ask you to don't regurgitate the research, but you will introduce prompt 2. You will introduce building efficacy and empower by restating some of the research, the pivotal research or the most important, and then you lead in, based on my survey, based on the observations, based on interviews or whatever, then you go into the results of what you've done.
Okay. So one of the first things you do is you describe your data collection process. What tool or instrument did you use? How many teachers did you observe? What instrument did you use for your survey? How many teachers were surveyed? By what method was the survey delivered? And what is your response rate? Now it says SurveyMonkey. That's a little outdated. Everybody's required to use Qualtrics now. So your method of survey, all of you would be through Qualtrics. Okay, so you take a paragraph or two and talk about your data collection strategies. And that's the title of the section. All right. So the next thing you do is describe the criteria in the process of identifying gaps. This is where you meet with your PLC. And this is where you share the data sets with your PLC. And you would want to include an agenda. And this is where you discuss not only the results of the data, but you need to summarize the research for them. Guys, this is what the research says should be happening in teacher empowerment and leadership. Here are our data results.
Dr. Revis, just a reminder to the students again, remember, you must show yourself leading. This is a prime example of you have to show yourself leading.
Very good point. All right, so first section is going to be describe data collection strategies. Your second section is going to be what process did you use with your PLC and how did you put that PLC together? How did you lead that PLC, not only through the data analysis, but through your research? All right, now here's our third section, building efficacy and empowerment amongst staff. You had the very same section that you did in task 1 where you did research. So the first thing you do in each of these sections is you reiterate the most important or salient points of your research. Don't give us the whole 3 to 5 paragraphs of your section. Okay. Just pick out 1 or 2, and I would, if you take an author and take some of their work, be sure you cite it in APA as well. And then you pull anything from the survey that connects to building efficacy and empowerment. Okay? And you get a lot of this information more from your survey probably than from your observation checklist on most of these. But in this particular one, building efficacy, what I would want to see here is, were the overwhelming majority of the items on the checklist survey? What did teachers report when the question budget input? Because if teachers feel that they have input in the budget, that would be an indicator of empowerment. If teachers feel they had input with hiring, that would indicate empowerment, or input in the curriculum, or was it a model classroom for others to observe? From your checklist, were the overwhelming majority of your items on the checklist observed at high rates? That could be an indicator that the teacher works with efficacy and feels empowered within her classroom. Remember, the survey is collecting data outside of the classroom. Teacher leadership beyond the classroom. The checklist, the observation checklist, is teacher leadership within the classroom. So once you share your data sets and the research from this area, then you would work and lead your PLC through an analysis to identify strengths and possible gaps in this area. Now, if all your data comes back very strong, you can simply say, our PLC did not note any gaps in this area. But you do need to talk about your strengths. Now, I would say that most of you are going to have a gap in each of these areas. And Dr. Stedman, I kind of like to see, even if it's a high rating, if it's your lowest indicator on the survey, if it's your lowest percentage of yeses, you know, that would be an area for improvement or to delve into and find out more about. So
Exactly.
I like to see possible gaps in each area. Okay. Nobody's perfect. There's always room for improvement. If you just give me everything's fine, no problems, there are no gaps, I will send it back to you. You've got to identify gaps. Even if 90% of your teachers indicate that they have input and have strong teacher empowerment, there's got to be one area that's a little lower than the other.
And Dr. Revis, one of the things you need to remember, you are building your case for what you've got to do in task 3. And if you know, if you say everything's hunky-dory, you know, all along the way, then what you have nothing to work with when you, and it's not that way. Even in a high achieving school, there's things that you can always do better, like Dr. Revis said. So just know that you're building your case. When you look for these gaps, the gaps are going to help you identify what you've got to do in task 3. Okay.
Now here's a very important sentence. You may not be able to use the survey and checklist in all 5 of these areas. How to incorporate them. You'll use your survey results, I will tell you that, more than your checklist results. All right, the next section is results-oriented professional development. You've already done the research, so you share the research with your PLC. Then you share your survey results. What percentage of the teachers felt like they had meaningful staff development or input on the staff development? On the observation checklist, reflecting on professional development offered in your building, did you observe any evidence of that being implemented when you did your walkthroughs? And then working with your PLC, identify strengths and possible gaps in this area. It's the same process that you used in the very first section. Here's your third section, recruitment, placement, and mentoring. Same process. Share the research with your PLC, share the survey results that connect to that area, your observation checklist areas that connect to that area, and then facilitating that discussion with your PLC, identify strengths and gaps.
Dr. Revis, let me point out something. While you're doing this is a perfect way to identify. You can turn around and say, I met with my PLC and they served as a focus group. They can serve as a focus group, and you can show them this, and then your focus group could be the 2 or 3 questions that you generate, that you ask them, and you get their responses, and that becomes qualitative research as you are reporting back that, you know, this is how you come to the conclusions that you come to after you've talked. But that's qualitative research, and it's perfectly acceptable to include the scripting from, you know, from your meeting with your PLC there.
Okay, and here are your last 2 sections. It's the same process. Research, survey results, observation checklist results, and then identifying strengths and possible gaps. I'm not going to read through all these, but this is posted, and I can repost this again in week 11. for you to pull up. These are great questions that you can ask yourself and even ask your PLC team about when you're working through and doing your analysis. And then finally, after you do that, you're going to summarize your work for prompt 1. Synthesize what you and the PLC discovered. Write a brief statement identifying the areas of greatest need between research and practice as you found it in your school. Any questions on prompt 1?
And Dr. Revis, I just responded to Kathleen's question, but I'll let them know it's in Blackboard, but we will take this and we will post it again under week 11 so you can find it more easily.
Yeah, it's in there. I don't remember what week it's under, but we'll post it again in week 11. Okay.
And Jolynn, yes, I would, even though it's not there, I would say, yes, you need to use gap analysis with a heading or a section. And it's okay to just say, gap analysis as a heading and then narratively talk about the gap analysis. Yes.
Okay.
It needs to be evident. It needs to be, we shouldn't have to, nor should the evaluator have to search for it. So I would say, yes, make it easy.
And this is just a summary of what your prompt 1 is about. Prompt 1 is the big one. That's the heavy lifting. That's where you've got a lot of work to do. If you've not started on your survey and your walkthroughs, you've got a lot of work to do. You got to meet with your PLC team this week as well. After you collect these data sets, you can't meet with them until you do that. Now, you also have a helpful hints document that gives you an example how this is written out narratively. Okay. Dr. Stedman, do you want to take prompt 2 from here, or do you want to switch to another document?
Okay, stop sharing. Let me pull up the helpful hints document. I want to show them something.
Okay.
Or I want to show an example of something. Let me share the screen. Now I've pulled up, let me see if I can find, okay, here it is. Give me a sec. Okay, here. Okay. Here we are, task 2. Here we are. Okay. Prompt 2. That's where we are, right, Dr. Revis?
Yes.
Data is graphically represented in the narrative in the forms of charts, tables, graphs, etc. These visuals are to be used to illustrate and support the data analysis and conclusions expressed in a needs assessment based on a gap analysis. This is a picture story. It's like a picture book. And you're going to show us stuff that's going to explain all of what you've talked about in prompt 1. And this is where, the results from your survey, you can take each of the questions like they've done, like figure 3, school setting teacher survey results. Teachers have input on professional development offerings at the school. And you see it says they had 21 responses. And yours would be yes or no. You can do a bar graph, this is just because this was allowed last year. This is how this looks. Yours can look. You've got to show in various ways. Now I want you to look back up here, and I'm going to show you something in a few minutes what we're going to look for, but especially what your evaluators are going to look for. This is where many students in the AAPTEL get marked down, Dr. Revis, because they fail to supply enough graphic information here. Think, well, there's 1 or 2 little things here and that tells it all. That doesn't tell the whole story. You've got to tell the whole story graphically, and just make sure that you know, that you identify them as figures, that you put enough information there that it's understandable. Now, this is how this person did that, and then see, this is the walkthrough examples. There's various ways that you can do that. You know, you can talk about your walkthroughs based on your interview with your principal. You can put some narrative work in there, but that's how they did that. But it talked about the challenges, you know, et cetera, et cetera. Dr. Revis, what else would you like to say about prompt 2?
Well, I like to see him prompt 2. I like to see the walkthrough form. And
Right.
I want to see a summary of your walkthroughs. So if scroll back down there to that walkthrough form, if you don't mind, Dr. Stedman. And so you'll have your walkthrough form. I want to see a summary. I don't know what this means right here. That looks like just one individual walkthrough form that this person did. I want to see when you did your walkthrough, what percentage of teachers identify similarities and differences? Was it 50%, 70%, 100%? Yes or no? Now, it's not uncommon when you do a walkthrough. You're not going to see every one of these strategies in every classroom, but I want to see a summary. And then, because then you can easily present that as well to your PLC. They need to have a summary of your walkthrough. Okay, not just the raw data. You need to put it together and have it summarized for them so they can quickly see, oh, wait a minute. We have a high level of teachers using graphic organizers, but we don't have many teachers at all extending and refining thinking. So, you know, it gives them something to look at. They're not having to, you know, take 5 different forms and look at them. You've already summarized that. And that's what I like to see in your prompt 2.
And Dr. Revis, I would say that, you know, again, that this is where we need to see that you've talked with a principal, assistant principal, you know, as you walk, in your opinion, what do walkthroughs, your walkthrough experience, what story does it tell when you walk through? What do you see as, you know, and they'll talk to you that, you know, the biggest area for needs improvement is, or the biggest areas are. That becomes validated data that you can use to talk about in task 2, but because it comes from your principal, from your administrators, from your curriculum people that are in there. That's validated information because that's what they do. And you can talk about that. And when you begin looking at the gaps and looking at what needs to be done, that needs assessment, and you move towards, you know, building a plan for improvement, you use that as part of the information to you know, to decide what that plan is going to be and the activities that you're going to recommend that you do to close that gap. I like what this student did right here, Dr. Revis, at the end. He says, in summary, it is evident that this school is not above the same challenges that the research stated. There are several areas that need to be improved. I mean, a good summary at the end. It talked about the strengths, but it also talked about, and this basically it leads into the work that they're going to do in task 3, because they've begun to identify, you know, narratively at the end, some of those things. It is.
And I think you
Go ahead.
I think you always need to summarize. Now, I would say that, in my opinion, this summary is a little bit general.
It
I would
is.
like for you to say the areas that we feel like we could improve upon are, and name
Right.
them.
Right. And
Our
there should
areas
be
of
more than
strength
one.
are.
And it should be plural. There should be are, because your plan is not going to be one thing. Your plan has got to be a variety of I think, and remember, this plan is supposed to be over the span, at least the minimum of a school year. So you're looking at, um, basically you're looking at a staff development plan for your teachers. That's what it is. It's a staff development plan for your teachers. And see, this is a prime time. There's not a whole lot you're going to be able to do to fix things for the rest of this year. But when you present this to your administration, this should be a perfect segue into beginning the plans for the next school year. What you do, it should be the best thing since sliced bread when you talk to your principal about, they should start salivating and say, I can't wait to use this next year. And you're going to have that opportunity. Dr. Revis, I want us to come back in just a moment, but while we're here, and I can go to we're not going to spend a lot of time with it, but this example is just, let's talk briefly about how this leads into task 3, and then task 3 we will delve into next week, but there'll be some that possibly will be ready for it. So let's just briefly talk about task 3 before we tell them what they've got to do for this week.
Well, the reason you're doing the gap analysis in task 2 is because in task 3, you're going to develop an action plan. Remember, we always gather and analyze data before we develop an action plan. So when you first start that, you're going to talk about, summarize the data again, introduce what your action plan is going to look like, and some of the same areas or headings that you used in the AAPTEL when you were writing up the action plan will be used here, okay? And you have several areas for which to address a vision for positive school environment. That would be some research that you got to do there. Documentation to support identified needs. Remember that section? And look at the data in there. 52% of the school staff, 76. I want to see this being a data-rich discussion.
Okay, Dr. Revis, remember when you did the AAPTEL, remember in task 2 where you had to disaggregate the data for the students? This is basically what you're doing. You're disaggregating the data now, the teachers. Everything you can get, that's what you're doing. You're just taking it, everything you did was for the students in the AAPTEL. Now you're doing that almost identically for the same things, with your teachers now. What does the data show? What does the research say?
And then remember, I always encourage you to start with that action plan as a graphic organizer and to work with your team to fill that out. And then you can write all your narrative from that action plan. It's the same process that you used when you were developing your action plan for your AAPTEL. Like Dr. Stedman said, the only difference is the AAPTEL was about student learning, and this is about teacher empowerment and leadership, okay? Because what we know about teacher empowerment is if our school is a school in which teachers feel empowered, guess who's going to be ultimately benefit from that? Our students. So you write about your short and long-term goals and objectives, same thing you did before.
There's just no midterm. It's either short-term or long-term, what you can do now or what you can do later.
Good point. And then you talk about the activities. I like to think of those as strategies, but we call it activities. Those are the specific things that you and your PLC have identified in the areas for growth and improvement.
And just remember, this is, and I'd like to say that, don't simplify this. This should be, don't let this section be kindergarten stuff. This should be sophisticated stuff right here. That's good. We're looking for, this is really, the activity is going to be, well, I will tell you, when the evaluators look at that, they look strongly at the activities that you got there, and do they align with what you've said, in task 2, with your findings and things? Does this align? They go back and they see if this is aligned with what you've said. This is where your focus is going to be. There probably will need to be some type of focused, planned staff development. What will that be? The overall biggest need for the school, based on what you see. It could be, help me out, Dr. Revis. And it doesn't need to be, you're not looking at how to discipline children. You're not looking at that. You're looking at, again, the biggest needs that's going to help with improve student achievement in the school. Now, also, you're looking at, if some of those strategies should look at teacher empowerment in that classroom, but they got to look at teacher empowerment outside that classroom. So you're looking at, if the weaknesses in why teachers don't feel engaged, in those things that are outside the classroom. Those have got to be as a combination. Your strategies are a combination of inside the classroom and outside the classroom. Teacher leadership outside the classroom, teacher leadership inside the classroom.
Right. I think the professional development would have to be tied to your walkthroughs.
Right.
Based on what areas in your walkthroughs that you felt like teachers needed more support in. But just make sure that it's connected to your gap analysis. That's the main thing you've got to do.
Dr. Revis, there's not many, but there's a few that said that their school didn't even do walkthroughs. Well, it's time to start. So, that could be, a suggestion for improvement.
And that would align with your approaches to or for evaluation, even though, I hate for walkthroughs to be evaluative, but, as a school leader, boy, you can gain a lot of information in walkthroughs.
Right.
It's particularly about what teachers need as far as growth and development. And one thing you need to make sure you do not do in task 3 in one of these sections is say, see figure 12, because that's the action plan. No, you can say see figure 12, but I better have a lot of narrative in these sections.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then your specific timeline of activities, when you're going to start it. And you should really plan for most of this to start when school starts back in the fall. Or if you have anything planned for the summer, like Daniel Simmons, you have year round, so yours might be aligned differently based on if you're a year round school, those kinds of things. Dr. Revis?
And then, like again, you have to do a plan for stakeholder buy-in, involvement and buy-in, because you can have all the best plan in the world, but if you don't have buy-in, it's just a pretty plan. And no growth and improvement will happen. This is the hardest thing for administrators. How do you get buy-in? It's a little different for you to get buy-in. Your buy-in, you got to get your administrator to buy in. But as an administrator, how do you get your teachers to buy into this? Not just put on a show whenever they think I'm coming by, but really and truly buy in to these activities.
Right. And just remember, the only person that really likes change is a baby when they've got a dirty diaper. Most people don't like change other than that. So.
Exactly. And then again, this is this very same heading that you had in the AAPTEL action plan. You identify your roles and responsibilities in the action plan. Again, be sure you put that in narratively. And this formative and summative assessment criteria. Again, when we say formative, it's about monitoring the adults, this is all about adult behavior, so it's going to look a little bit different. You're going to have to, how are you going to do formative and summative assessments? So a little bit different than with student learning.
But
This
and
is about,
what you do with them does impact student learning, but this is not about student learning. So we really shouldn't, that really shouldn't become a part of the formula at all, Dr. Revis, in this.
no, we shouldn't see things like EOG or EOC assessment data or the interim assessment data. No, we shouldn't see that kind of thing. And then I don't know what section we're in now. I was running my mouth when
This
we
is,
came
this
down
is,
through.
okay, we're still, okay, this is the formative and summative assessment.
Oh,
And they
okay.
just put some supporting information there. That's all they've done from their
Okay.
surveys.
They just put a figure or two in there. That's
There's
good.
some stuff in there. And then they just put figure. Okay, here is
And then you do have to do an action plan presentation to your admin staff. Now, you may ask how many activities. I think here, Dr. Stephen, I want to see 4 to 5. What are your thoughts?
I really think I would say 5, Dr. Revis.
Okay.
I would say 5. You need at least 5, and you can just make sure that that they're reflective of leadership in the classroom and leadership outside the classroom. They're not all in one area, and it's I can say 2 of one, 3 of another, or vice versa. But I think there needs to be a balance in that, and you don't want too many, because you've got to much more than that. But if if you ended up with 6, I wouldn't say you can't have 6, but don't put too many there beyond that, because you've got to make sure that it's something that you can do.
And that you can monitor and follow up.
Right.
Do you mind going back up just a little bit and let's look at that graphic organizer?
Yeah.
Same graphic organizer you used in the AAPTEL, guys, very same one. And you'll use this over and over throughout your program. But notice that everything's filled out. You don't leave any blanks here. Everything's filled out. And this particular person did one about teacher evaluations, professional development, follow-up, walkthrough. You've got to have a plan for monitoring this. That's why you don't want to get too many strategies, because you can't monitor it and you can't follow up. If you don't monitor and follow up on it, don't even put it down, because it won't happen. I'll promise you that.
But anyway, okay, I'm going to stop share. That's enough next week, to get you thinking about it. And the reason we want you to think about it is, let me see if my video worked now for a minute. The reason we want you to think about it is that another activity that you've got to do this week is you've got to meet with your Zoom team. And this is the same thing you did with the AAPTEL, but you've got to talk about the AAPTEL development. Now, it says basically task 1, but we're disregard that. You've completed task 1, so that serves as the foundation to get you started. But you will be working with task 2, and you have been introduced to task 3. So what Dr. Revis and I would like for you to do is, based on what you've already done, what you're doing, and what you've got to do, talk about the AAPTEL and what you've done at the AAPTEL development. Help each other out. If there are, this is a time that you can ask somebody in your Zoom team, well, what do you think about so and so? Talk about the development and just glean ideas from each other, as to what you can do when you go back and do your work, or when you meet with your professional learning community, with that. Dr. Revis?
And guys, we gave you some dialogue discussion starters as prompts. Well, this time we're not going to do that. This time, whoever is your Zoom leader, and of course you're taking turns with that, you can prepare your own questions. You may just want to, let's talk about AAPTEL task 1, what did you learn? What did you what did you find interesting with the research? And talk about task 2. What did you find in your school, etc. But we are wanting you to kind of take the lead here and facilitate your own discussion about the AAPTEL.
Dr. Revis, I pulled up, and this is in Blackboard. There's a section, this is the scoring rubric. I think you need to understand now. Now, all of you, you should be striving for accomplished work. Now, this is what we look at, and this is what we try to guide you in this direction. But this is exactly what the evaluators, their rubric for grading is based on this information. Now, let's go back to task 1. To be accomplished, even considered for accomplished, this is what you have to, the candidate develops an extensive literature review with bibliography that is thoroughly aligned with the best practices areas identified in the prompt. Now notice those 2 words that they have emphasized, extensive and thoroughly, but it doesn't stop there. Now you can do all that, but you see this connecting word, conjunction, and, that you've got to have. The checklist is effectively and thoroughly designed as an instrument to aid in observing. This is the checklist, and this is going to be your survey. All of this is in there. So to be even considered for accomplished, it's got to be effective and thoroughly designed. It's got to have that professional look to it. And then you go backwards after that. This is the only way you can be considered for 4. This is a 3 or above. Anything past that, there's problems. Okay? So you don't want that. You need to look at this. Let's look at task 2 that you're going to be working on this week. Okay, this is what it should. The candidate exceptionally describes data collection strategies. Look at that word, exceptionally. It's not just minimally or just basic information. Exceptionally describes and findings in the process of identifying the gaps between actual practice and best practices research and introduced in task 1. And the candidate thoroughly cites best practices literature review sources, and the candidate strategically analyzes the gap analysis to create a needs assessment in all 5 target areas. That's important. And then you can go on and see for yourself, when you get to task 3, this is what you've got to do. You need to go ahead and look at, I want you to look at this. And they're going to look for this. You can say, do we have to do it? Well, this is what they're going to look for. The candidate works with others to create and video record a presentation addressing prioritized needs developed in the prompt for task 3. What does it say right there? Or do we have to do it? Well, if you don't, guess what? You might as well go on back and look at proficient. Am I right, Dr. Revis?
You are correct.
And we didn't make this up. These are the requirements. So, I'm telling you ahead of time, look at this. Look at this word right here. Multiple uses of digital tools. Multiple. This is where many people get marked down, and you end up with a 3 in this area because you shortchange yourself. So make sure that you are looking at this and you're planning wisely, and you're putting, enough of the information in there that you can be considered for accomplished. I know we've given you a whole lot. Okay, questions at this point?
I have a question about task 1.
Okay, go ahead, Kathleen.
The bibliography versus the reference. Do we legitimately need a bibliography, or can we just use the references?
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, Dr. Evans.
You'll just have a reference section. Is that what-
Amplify.
Could everybody mute yourself, please,
Okay.
just a second?
I'm gonna mute everybody and then you start back over, Kathleen.
So that was successful, right?
Okay.
Okay, Kathleen, I
Kathleen.
hope I'm understanding.
Unmute
hope I'm
yourself now,
understanding.
Kathleen. Kathleen, unmute yourself now.
Well, I think she knows my question. She was trying to
Okay.
respond.
You've got it.
You'll just need a reference section, just like you did in your other work.
Because it does say bibliography in the description of the task, but
Yeah. It's just a reference section.
Okay.
That's what it's saying, but good question, clarification. Thank you.
Kathleen looks at the details, I'll tell you that.
She is a detailed person and that's good.
First finding that out too. So
That's good, Kathleen. I love those kind of people on my team. Okay, other questions? Okay. Let me pick on Dr. Revis, you pick on somebody. Somebody needs to tell us what has to be done this week before we go out. Let's ask questions, Dr. Revis.
Okay, I'm gonna pick on Dion. Dion, tell me what one thing that's due this Sunday evening at 9 p.m.
So we have to turn in task 2 by 9 p.m. But to start, we need to get permission to send out the survey link.
Right, you've got to clear task 1, get all that cleared out before you can even begin task 2, don't you? But
Yes.
you've got, so this is Tuesday. By Sunday evening, you gotta have task 2 finished. That's collect data, have your PLC to analyze data, and do your narrative work. That's a lot. What
Okay.
else is due? Dr. Stedman, you pick on somebody.
Okay, Jolynn, what else is due this week? There's one more thing that your team has to do.
We also have to have the Zoom meeting.
Right, and the Zoom meeting,
Completed.
even though it's time consuming, you've got to fit it in. Remember, use Thursday because we're not coming together on Thursday. That would be a good time to think about it if you can't figure out another time. But just, this is going to help you as a team, you know, with the rest of the work that you do. So you need to go ahead and decide who the Zoom master is going to be and go ahead and get that information out and decide on the time and just go ahead and get that knocked out. And remember, task 1, you can go ahead if once your peer reviews have been done and we've cleared you, you can go ahead and submit that for evaluation, and several have done that and get it over with. If you got anything less than 100 and there was something that you needed to edit, you need to take care of that immediately. Immediately, you need to get that cleared so that you can move on to task 2 without any problems, because you've got a lot of ground to cover this week.
Guys, this is the week that you got to do heavy lifting. You got a
Right.
lot of things to do this week. But if you can get this week behind you under your belt, you're going to be home free.
Right. The rest of the
And-
AAPTEL will not be nearly as cumbersome of your time after this week.
So I'm going back to what Dr. Stedman said, get task 1. If you had revisions, get them back as soon as possible. Guys, I'm going to challenge you. If you can think past 8 o'clock, try to get that task 1 behind you tonight, so you can focus in on task 2.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. And one more thing, Tara Bradford, what else has to be done with task 2 by 6 o'clock next Tuesday?
The peer reviews.
Peer reviews. Now, I will say that a handful of you backslid on me this week. And you waited to the last minute and they were not the quality of work. Do not backslide. You need to make sure that you're still giving quality reviews and that it's going to support the person's work that you're reviewing. And, you know, it should help them to, as I state in many of my reviews back to you, my comments back to you, your comments should be enough that if they will adhere to it, that it can be, their work can become accomplished work as a result of making those edits. That's what it should be. And, you know, in addition, it gives you a chance to go back and reflect on your own work. Okay. So
I have
let's,
a question.
okay, Crystal.
So I've started on my task 2. I've actually already gathered my data. However, I guess my question is, if we're unable to meet, like pull our PLC team together this week, can we do everything else and maybe do that last part if we can't get it in by Sunday? Because the reason why I say that is because I was looking at the calendar of events. I mean, I don't know if I told you all, but we actually got a brand new principal just right here just a few weeks ago. We were assigned a new principal, so he's actually in the process of trying to, I guess, I don't know, but he has a lot of stuff lined up as far as meetings and.
Okay, well, Crystal, I understand. Do everything that you can. I don't think we need to go back and make it a general statement that, you know, if you need to talk to me at the end of the week after you see what you can do this week. Okay, do everything you can.
And remember, Crystal, you can do virtual meetings.
Right. Do everything you can. But I think, you know, that would open up Pandora's box if I started saying something now, and I can't do that. Just talk to me at the end of the week, okay? And let's see where you are.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Okay, guys. Thank you. You're almost there. You really are. You've come a long ways from that first night that we met. A long ways. And I know you have. You know, this is you know, I see a lot of growth, Dr. Revis. A lot of growth. A lot of growth.
And Jamie, don't forget, we need to have a brief conversation after the class. And you guys have a good week. Got a lot to do.
You too, but I have a quick question, Dr. Revis.
Sure.
I mean, I'm sorry, Dr. Revis. I mean, Dr. Stedman. But either one of them probably can answer this one. With the video recordings, could that be done on Zoom as well, or no?
Yes, that can.
Okay.
As long as your administration is there.
Okay.
And remember now,
Thank you.
your Zoom recording that you have to have is in task 3. You don't have to
Yes,
do
ma'am.
it. Okay,
Right.
all right.
Yes,
Now,
ma'am.
Renee. Now,
Yes,
I will
sir.
say Renee got ahead of the game. She's already submitted task 2, and I sent it back to her. But you got a lot of good stuff in there.
Okay.
You just got to organize it and fix it. But you got a lot of good stuff. So don't throw all that stuff away. You've got some good stuff to work with. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Now that I seen the PowerPoint, I seen more that I, should have added, but I
Right.
didn't know that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Dion.
So does it matter if your administration is one person?
No.
Okay, you just got to present for her, just making sure.
Long, right. And when you present, I would have as support, would have my PLC team in there if they can be there, or at least some members of it. That will help.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to be possible because they're all teachers. So they're in the classroom during the day, and that's when I can catch up with her.
Okay, well, as long as you present to your administration, that's what counts.
Okay.
So we don't have to record this particular meeting for task 2. The recording
Not
should be
for
task
task
3.
2. It's when you present your action plan, right? The culminating project.
Okay, great. Okay. I was thinking we had to record for task 2. That was why.
Not for task 2. No.
Okay.
No. So you'll be okay then, right, Crystal?
Yes, I think we'll be okay. I'll be okay.
Good. Okay, good.
All right, thanks.
Okay,
Okay, guys,
Okay, guys,
Jolynn, you want to stay, and Jamie, and we'll see the
Okay.
rest of you. Please feel free to reach out if you have any questions.
okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so my question is, our admin team uses a Google form. So the way, can I share my screen?
Going and I'll get it to you in a little bit.
All right. Take care, Danny. Thank you for staying on with me and
Okay,
Jamie.
sure. Okay, bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.